Guys, this is Mr. Joshy J, and this is your driver ratings and team ratings for the Russian Grand Prix. That was an absolute fantastic Grand Prix, that really was. So, if you've not watched this sort of videos before, and me doing driver ratings and team ratings, I go through the drivers and teams' performances over the weekend and give them a marking out of 10. So, yeah, let's get to it then. Right, let's start off with the team who I usually start off with first, Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, 6 out of 10. Now, I'm actually marking Hamilton down a bit because he did make a few errors. In practice, he hit one of his jackmen, and then in qualifying, crashed into the wall, span a couple times in qualifying, didn't get the best start in the race, but then still went on to win the Grand Prix, passed Lando Norris and won the Grand Prix. So he was P4 in qualifying, I believe. Yeah, P4 in qualifying and P1 in the race. So in the end, gets his 100th win. And the weather conditions obviously played their part. So, well done to Lewis Hamilton. 100 wins. Get in there, Lewis. Yes. Valtteri Bottas. 5 out of 10. Not a great weekend for Valtteri Bottas at all. Of course, in qualifying, he got a bit held up in the double stack when Lewis Hamilton went into the wall. But then in the race, Valtteri Bottas absolutely struggled. If it wasn't for the rain, he wouldn't have been in the points. But in the end, he ended up finishing P5. So in the end, not too bad at all. Red Bull, Max Verstappen, 9 out of 10. Started last in qualifying because of an engine penalty and components changed. So, yep, 9 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic the way he's making his way back up the field. And then once he put on the intermediates, Max Verstappen being the wet weather master, got up to P2. And the gap between Hamilton and Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship is just 2 points. It really is anything to play for. And the title battle is going to be exciting now until the end of the season. It really is. Sergio Perez, 5 out of 10, disappointing again for Perez in qualifying. Well, in the end and in the race, he stayed out too long at the end of the race and ended up finishing P9. I believe that's where he qualified as well, so not a great weekend for Sergio Perez at all. Red Bull really need him to start scoring points. Red Bull want to win the Constructors this year. They really need Sergio Perez to step it up. He's been horseshit recently, Sergio Perez. He's been terrible. Absolutely fucking terrible, Sergio Perez. McLaren, Lando Norris, 10 out of 10. Absolute 10 for Lando Norris. Tantalisingly close. His first ever victory in F1. P1 in qualifying. And in the end, I think it was P8 in the race. He did cross the white line, so more than likely he got a penalty, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, just absolutely devastated for him. He hardly deserved that first victory, but in the end it just wasn't meant to be, I'm afraid, for Lando Norris. He stayed out too long. He should have came in for the intermediate tyres, but he decided to stay out and it was the wrong decision. Daniel Ricciardo, 10 out of 10. Absolute 10. Another fantastic weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. The race winner from Monza. He's absolutely superb again this weekend. P4 in qualifying and P4 in the race. Absolutely fantastic. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, 7 out of 10. P19 in qualifying because he had an engine penalty, and I think it's P12 or P13 in the race. He did have a slow pit stop and it looked like he got caught out by the weather conditions, so that is unlucky for Leclerc. Carlos Sainz, 9 out of 10. Fantastic weekend for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P2 in qualifying and P3 in the race. Didn't put a foot wrong at all this weekend, Carlos Sainz. Didn't damage the car, which is a big relief, because recently he's been damaging quite a few of his cars, so Ferrari need him to stop doing that. Like I said in my last video, otherwise it'll be costing them a big repair bill, and it looked like he may listen to me because he was superb this weekend's Carlos Sainz. Alpine, Fernando Alonso, 10 out of 10. Absolute 10 for Fernando Alonso. He is driving like the Fernando Alonso of old. He really is. He looks very much at home in that Alpine team. Did well in qualifying and I think he got P6 in the race. He definitely qualified in the top 10, I think. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic weekends at Fernando Alonso. Esteban Ocon, 5 out of 10. You know, beaten by Fernando Alonso all weekend. Esteban Ocon. Alpha Tauri. Now, this was another absolute disastrous weekend for both drivers. Pierre Gasly, 0. Absolutely 0. An awful weekend for Pierre Gasly. Absolutely nowhere near the points at all. Yuki Tsunoda, 0. Absolutely 0. Again, failed to get out of Q2 and really struggled to race pace. Absolutely horrific weekend again for Alpha Tauri. Really is. Alfa Romeo, Sebastian Vettel, 5 out of 10. I think he finished P12 in the race and no points at Aston Martin this weekend, so disappointing weekend. Lance Stroll, 5 out of 10. Again, not the best of weekends for Lance Stroll. Also made contact with Vettel during the race, and like I said, no points to the Aston Martin team, so that's not a great weekend at all. Alfa Romeo, Kimi Raikkonen, 10 out of 10. Absolute 10 for Kimi Raikkonen. I thought he's absolutely superb this weekend. Considering he's been out of action for a couple of races, he was absolutely superb this weekend. Beat Antonio Giovinazzi all weekend. Antonio Giovinazzi, 0. Absolute 0 for Antonio Giovinazzi. I mean, he had a spin in qualifying and really struggled to race pace. So, yep, 0 for Giovinazzi. Beaten by Kimi Raikkonen all weekend. Usually he does well in qualifying and worst in the race, but it is a weekend to forget for Giovinazzi this weekend. Haas, Mick Schumacher, 5 out of 10. Standard weekend, you know, was doing okay, but obviously retired in the race due to a mechanical issue. Nikita Mazepin, 5 out of 10. He didn't actually put a foot wrong this weekend, Nikita Mazepin, but we all know the Haas is horseshit, so standard weekend, really. Yep, Williams. George Russell, 10 out of 10. Absolute 10 for George Russell. P3 in qualifying and P10 in the race. Has scored some more points for Williams. He is doing a phenomenal job, always outperforming that Williams, George Russell is, and I absolutely cannot wait to see him in the Mercedes next season. Nicholas Latifi, 0, absolute 0 for Nicholas Latifi. A shocking weekend. You know, really struggled in qualifying and then retired in the race. A weekend to forget for the Canadian. Right, that's the driver ratings then. Team ratings. Mercedes, 8 out of 10. Perfect strategy with Lewishausen Not the best weekends of Valtteri Bottas, but he still picks up P5 and really good points in the Mercedes team in the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull, 8 out of 10. Max Verstappen, absolutely phenomenal, making his way up the field. Sergio Perez, another disappointing performance. Again, handy points for them in the battle in the Constructors. McLaren, 10 out of 10. You know, again, they were on the brink of winning back-to-back races. Lando Norris so unlucky, and Daniel Ricciardo solid again this weekend. Ferrari, 8 out of 10. You know, P3 for Carlos Sainz, and unlucky for Leclerc, he couldn't quite get the points. But a great weekend for Carlos Sainz. Yep. Alpine, 7 out of 10. Great weekend for Fernando Alonso, but a weekend to forget for Esteban Ocon. Alpha Tauri, 0. Absolute 0. A horror weekend for them, again, for second weekend running. Aston Martin, 4 out of 10. A weekend to forget for them. It really was, you know, no points. Alfa Romeo, 7 out of 10. Kimi Raikkonen, fantastic. Antonio Giovinazzi, awful. Haas, 5 out of 10. Standards for them, really. And Williams, 8 out of 10. George Russell, phenomenal. Latifi, shambolic this weekend. So, right, that's the driver ratings done. Team ratings done. For the Russian Grand Prix, we now move on to Istanbul, Turkey, where the title fight between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen continues. Comment your thoughts down below, I will always reply. And join me later on for a preview to the Manchester United game in the Champions League with Real. Bye-bye.